Howdy underlings, and welcome to my third Game & Watch series retrospective. I talked about the handheld and its origins in the Silver series, and Gold I talked about how they were kind of just killing time until they had a better idea. Now it's time for some real innovation again. Sort of. There's a lot of just doing the same here too. The Widescreen series, despite its name, wasn't actually a widescreen formatted device like the modern 16:9. 16:9 wouldn't become the standard for decades after this. In fact, Game & Watch games aren't even 4:3. Many use the same screen dimensions. In the terms of Game & Watch, widescreen games actually meant expanding the device as a whole. It was 30% larger. The screen was larger and the handheld was larger. It still contained all of the same features, but this big screen is actually kind of a big deal. If you remember from the Silver series, I explained how the games were made. Essentially, the graphics are little cutouts that were put on a screen and illuminated or darkened in this instance. Darkening the image showed it on screen, and the gameplay was basically made by illuminating the shapes by turning them on or off as they moved, like a calculator or digital watch. But the screen could only hold and illuminate so many shapes of such a small size at a time because of the limited space. By making the screen larger, they could provide better images and more visible graphics. This also made the playfield larger, which meant more complex designs. It was around this time that the Game & Watch was beginning to hit their big stride. They were very comfortable with this technology, and they knew exactly what it was capable of and what it wasn't capable of. This led to some of the best Game & Watch games out of the entire lineup, and other companies were starting to take notice. Cameo systems first came out in this generation with Mickey Mouse, Popeye, and Snoopy. Nintendo was pumping out bangers, and everyone wanted a piece. Despite these big names hopping on board and selling well, this series is often overlooked in favor of the generation to follow, the multi-screen titles. But before we overshadow these games with the multi-screen series, let's talk about the great games and watches that the widescreen series had to offer. The widescreen series theme changes quite a bit. I'm saying this up front because the packages don't have much in the way of individuality aside from the localized boxes. Instead of the black packaging with bright splashes of color like the Silver series, we got an all-gold package. They chose to retain the darker color palette from the Gold series though. The color palette doesn't need to be as bright when the package is gold, I guess. They also stuck with the minimalist, no-nonsense modern packaging. No one needs to know anything about the game besides a single screenshot, right? Like it's a Roblox game or something. I think it's a bit silly to not talk about your game on the packaging when you're charging people a week's worth of food for your game. All that's on the back is some of the other games from this series. It's not a huge change, but for marketing, this was important. This was huge because of the other change for this generation, because the biggest change in the series is the product placements. You'll see characters you know and love like Mickey, Popeye, and Snoopy. With huge names like Popeye, you needed to make sure people knew these devices existed. I don't like these boxes as much as I do like the originals, but the era Nintendo was in at the time, it made sense for them to do this. These are premium gaming devices and are no longer just a toy or a doohickey. When you're buying a Game & Watch, you're joining the Game & Watch family. This design reflects this, like a membership card for a secret club. Thankfully, we do have alternatives as Nintendo had more of an American presence now. They weren't using Time Out to publish in the West for them anymore, but their approach to marketing the handhelds was a little bit different. They went the Atari path, a box with the device on the left and a hand-drawn image on the right. The image on the right served as an abstract, giving you the rough idea of the gameplay. If you watched the Silver series video, you might remember that I mentioned how Atari liked to show paintings on their box art, and they always tried to make it look cooler than it was. This is kind of similar, but it's a little more honest with the packaging. I'll talk a bit about each of these in their sections, as they can be pretty different, and despite Nintendo doing a better job of localizing the devices, not all of them made it to the US. Keep in mind though that they still didn't bother putting an explanation of the gameplay on the back. I do like these boxes, and I think it's much better at advertising the gameplay and making them look more fun and imaginative. But the American boxes feel more like a toy than a premium device. Your opinions might differ though, but it's time for the games. Let's talk about Parachute. Parakeet? Pair of shoes? No, Parachute. The first game in the widescreen series, and it's mostly more the same kind of thing that you'd expect from the other systems by now. You play a guy in a boat who's catching parachuters jumping from a helicopter. Failing to save one results in them being eaten by a shark, and giving you a miss. You have 3 chances to get as high of a score as possible. The controls are your standard controls for Game & Watch at this point. Left, right, game A, game B, time, reset, and alarm. For the majority of Game & Watch games, these are the controls, so I won't be mentioning the left-right controls again. Gameplay is similar to Fire from the Silver series, but rather than bouncing, you only need to catch them all. Just like Fire though, we have a sneaky little guy who gets stuck in the tree. It's hard to predict when they'll fall out of the tree, and sometimes this gives the game cheap wins against you. Thankfully, you only encounter them on game B. Like in games like Ball, there are tracks that the objects fall on, and the innermost has the least frames. So falling parachuters on the right only have 5 frames to fall through, whereas the leftmost have 7. Pay attention to their tracks as well as their perceived speed when playing. The box art for Parachute is one of the better ones. Since Nintendo didn't explain how to play their games on of any of the boxes. This was the closest that we got to a description. Some might think that including art like this is dishonest marketing, but unlike Atari, they put an actual picture of gameplay next to it so you know what it really looked like. So you had the real game on the left, then you had the abstraction helping you imagine what the game was like. I think the art really reflects how the game is played. Dudes jump out of a chopper, boat catch, shark eat. The back of the packaging, however, didn't show any other device for this generation, which makes me think that they weren't entirely sure if the American audience was going to get every game in this generation. And this is consistent across a lot of the boxes. They don't have pictures of the other devices from this generation. Personally, I think this box does a great job of making the game look fun, but it definitely loses the mature appeal of the gold boxes. You can't really have a mature and child-friendly whimsy kind of thing going on. Those two styles clash. But that's because they were marketing to two entirely different audiences at the time. Games in the West at this time was primarily Atari. This was still 2 years before the video game crash, so adults and children alike were both playing video games. But the Western audience was playing these for fun experiences, and the Japanese audience was commuters just trying to kill time. GW in the West had to appeal to kids and adults, and GW in the East was appealing to businessmen, students, and other serious individuals. I think the boxes really represent the juxtaposition of the two audiences. In other visuals, I didn't mention it in the Gold series, but Nintendo started using color backgrounds. The larger screens and devices allowed for them to have more freedom in stage design. We have blue water, green trees, it looks very warm and tropical. But this is one of the more simply designed stages. These get much more complex as we go. If you want to play Parachute yourself, then check out the remakes in Game & Watch Gallery 2 and 4. In 2, Parachute gets the full remake treatment. We have a pixel-style remaster that plays just like the original, then we have a full remake featuring Mario as the boatman, as he saves falling Toads, DK Juniors, Yoshis, and more. The gameplay is mixed up in the remake by adding in things to avoid as well as power-ups, but each character also deploys their parachutes at different times, making some characters fall faster than others. It's the usual pattern of Toad is slow, Junior is fast, and Yoshi is in between. This is not only supposed to make the superior remake harder, but also increase the game's speed. You might think the speed differences is to make up for the lack of lanes, but the modern version still has lanes based on where the ship is tossing them, like the original. In addition to the 3 lanes, we have a cannon replacing the tree. This is much easier than the tree swinging ones from the original because you can more easily predict when and where the character that is ejected will land. This makes this version significantly easier and more enjoyable than the original for me. To make things harder, there are things to avoid, like grabbing a boo will make bob-ombs shoot out, and catching one of those counts as a miss. Everything else about this remake makes the game much easier. Stars give points, hearts restore lives, and a weird design choice where the Cheep Cheeps replace the shark. If the character lands on the Cheep Cheep, they'll instead be juggled instead of being eaten. The challenge of this game comes entirely from speed and the varying speeds of the characters. Despite being a hectic reaction game, this is very fun and it's one of my favorites. This is also one of the best remakes, being a near total overhaul of the original in every way, and you're going to see a lot of that in this video. The first 3 Gallery games were very good about their remakes. With the 4th, they added more games but got lazy on some of the remakes. Speaking of which, Gallery 4 has the most GW remasters in it, including a remaster of Parachute. This remake, however, takes a very long time to unlock, and it's not even a port of the remake. It's just the original. So if you want the best of both worlds, just try GWG 2. What's the best way to play? 100% the GWG 2 version. It has the original, of course, while also being an incredibly fun and fast-paced game that's oddly forgiving for a Game & Watch title. I played the Game Boy and Game Boy Color games on my RG Cube XX, which is perfect for this. The games nearly fill out the screen perfectly, and it feels like a very tailor-made experience for me. This is also probably the biggest you can get this screen portably without a massive device, currently at least. Is this one worth trying? Yes and no. The remake is a truly great remake, but the original kind of reeks and is boring. If you want to try the original, so you can do it on Retrofab, link in the description. Basically, someone made a bunch of 3D reproductions of classic LCD games and you can play a simulation of it there. If you don't want to go looking for the ROM and download it and get all that stuff ready, this is the way to do it. You can test it out before you go and, try and download it. The footage at the beginning of each game does also come from Retrofab. It's been pretty integral to making these videos, so thank you. Octopus. I hope you got your sub ready. No, not the subscribe button, although I'd appreciate it. I mean a submarine, because we're going under the sea with some nautical nonsense. In Octopus, we play a diver who wants the big money, and needs to get past an octopus to get it. The tentacles of the octopus are going to be stretching out and trying to block the diver the best they can. By the dopey look on the octopus's face, they must be high as heck on that seaweed, that oceanic kush, because they're not trying hard at all. Interesting thing about Octopus is its scoring system. Typically in GW games, you get 1 point for 1 successful goal achieved. Octopus actually features a risk and reward aspect. Once you get to the chest, you can continue to press the right button to grab additional treasure, but on repeated presses, you grab multiple handfuls of treasure, shoveling it into your bag. Grabbing more treasure takes more time, which sets the octopus up for trapping you. Then you have no one to blame but yourself and your greed when you die. This is huge, honestly, and just this alone makes Octopus much more engaging than its predecessors. The original uses the same controls as the previous game, left, right, and you know the rest. For aesthetics, we have this lovely hot dog octopus color, beautiful. The Japanese box matches the others, nothing crazy to talk about, and the American version kept the themes of the previous game with the silly and fun art. I love it. Octopus can be played through the Game & Watch Gallery series in GWG 1 and 4 as an unlockable. Both versions have full remakes, but Gallery 1 has Octopus available from the beginning if you're in a rush to try it. Since it's GB originally, you can set the GBC palette of your choice. The remake version in Gallery 1 is pretty simple. It's the same game but with more frames of animation, making it easier to figure out timing, lower learning curve. There isn't much of a change in the mechanics like most Gallery remakes, and the tentacles can go at a wider range of angles. This is a great remake because of the slowdown mechanic, because it understands what makes Octopus fun, the risk versus reward gameplay, but now with added risk. Do I play the game like I do in real life and grab all the booty I can until I'm incapable of moving, or do I play it safe and make more trips with less gold? In the GWG 4 version, we basically see the same game and mechanics, but in a previous video, I mentioned I don't care for GWG 4 because of its uncanny art style. They tried a little too hard to make Mario and gang look a little more realistic, and went a little too detailed, but it still fell short of being realistic, landing it smack dab in the middle of the uncanny valley. And Octopus, you can see what I mean. The octopus and my sleep paralysis demons would get along great because they're both hideous. Absolutely terrifying. But I guess that's the point, because this dude will f*** your shit up. In a sense, the environments are gorgeous, the level of detail is amazing, but on the other hand, Big Red looks like he eats exclusively puppies. Other than being a horror game now, it works very similarly to the previous Octopus. Grabbing treasure slows you down, and the octopus has more angles it can grab from. What's the best way to play? The first Gallery game on Game Boy has the game available from the beginning. It's not as terrifying, and I think it's a little bit better because of how it's designed. It's also a lot of work to unlock Octopus on 4 because it requires 50 stars. Explaining why 50 stars is a pain to unlock would require me reviewing the Gallery games, but I don't want to waste your time with that just yet. These are long enough as is, and reviewing those games would be better for their own videos. The easiest way to explain it, you'd need to play each game, it's 2 modes, and they're 2 difficulties, for 15 to 20 minutes without failing to unlock 5 stars. This means you'd be playing other games for about 4 hours before you get to play Octopus. Just check it out in the first Gallery game. Is it worth playing? Yes, absolutely. One of the best GW games out there. It combines reaction gameplay with patience, and most importantly, it incorporates risk and reward mechanics and player choice. It shows what these were capable of, despite their incredible simplicity. Popeye. This is an extra special entry because this is the first crossover in the Game & Watch toy line. In Popeye, you play Popeye, and you and your sweetheart Olive Oyl, your bestest Goyle, are planning a trip. Olive is standing at the top left and tosses you down various things you'll need for your trip, like drinks, fruit, and of course, cans of spinach. This on its own would make for a pretty standard and basic Game & Watch game. This is essentially how Parachute works. But to add to the difficulty, you have Popeye's nemesis, Brutus, who is later called Bluto, coming in trying to whack Popeye. On the left, he swings with a hammer, and on the right, his fist. In Game A, Brutus only appears on the left, which the manual says is easier. In Game B, he jumps from left and right, making him harder to avoid. But Game A is kind of harder, since this works like Parachute. The tracks have different amounts of images. The bottle lane only has 5 images, and the can lane has 7. Brutus's attack animation is only 3 frames. The frame is active, and the second is mid-swing, and the third frame is the one that you get hit on. This means that you only have 2 frames to react to Brutus's swinging. If he's only on the left in Game A, that means you have more time spent in one of his swings, giving you less time to line up and grab the bottle. In reality, the only frame that matters in Game & Watch games is the final frames. So while it might seem like you have less time to react, you only need to worry about that final frame for both getting hit and collecting. This isn't the most involved GW experience, but it's definitely an interesting one. Normally in GW games, you either collect or avoid, but Octopus showed that integrating both can improve the experience greatly. But personally, I think that Brutus swings a little too fast, and he's an absolute bastard, and I hate him, and I wish a cold, lonely death for him. You'll find yourself rapidly moving back and forth, first to try and catch the bottle, then moving away to avoid the hit, then flicking back to catch the bottle. This is the first game to incorporate flicking. Can't believe I'm going to have to use an aim trainer just to get better at Popeye. But since there are so few frames, it's difficult to judge the timing. That's a standard GW experience, honestly, trying to get used to timing between the frames. As you might imagine, licensing issues can make remakes and remasters difficult. Popeye isn't available in any Nintendo remake, remaster. Instead, to play today, you have 3 options: MAME emulation, G&W handheld emulation, and Retrofab. So unfortunately, you're not going to get a 60 FPS Mario remake with any of these licensed ones, even though they could easily swap Mario with Popeye, Peach with Olive, Bowser with Brutus, and the objects with mushrooms, coins, and fire flowers. Then they could add stars to make Mario temporarily immune to Bowser's attacks, and Bob-omb items to avoid. The closest you get to a remake is the colorized palette on Retrofab. This version is also the premiere version because you can set the speed of the game, see the boxes up close, read the manual, and get a full 3D model of the device. Speaking of the boxes, Popeye's box art has to be the most accurate one I've seen thus far. It's literally just the game, but colorful. The best way to play is Retrofab's version. If you want to play it portable, then your only option is either MAME or G&W handheld. Is it worth playing though? Not really. You get the same general experience from Parachute, which I'm guessing is why Nintendo never remade it. I don't think Brutus's presence really adds anything to the game. I think they should have given him at least one more frame in his swing. Chef. In Chef, 4 chefs come to work, but 3 of them quit, and you play the final chef left to pick up their slack. You do this by moving your character left and right to flip the various food items through the air. On the left is a cat that will sometimes stab the food and hold it a moment before letting it continue on its course. It's kind of like fire, except we never stop bouncing the people. So I think Chef has this important meta-narrative on the state of the economy and work as a blue-collar individual. You work hard and long hours, and should someone else not do their job, you're expected to pick up their slack without complaint and thank your boss for the opportunity. No bonus, no reward, not even a thank you. SMDH. Shake my damn head. No one appreciates a hard worker these days. Anyway, the Game A version is just 3 lanes of juggling, and Game B is 4 lanes. You miss a food, and a mouse scampers away with it. Not an incredibly involved game, and it's more of the same. It doesn't really provide anything new or out there in mechanics, and maybe that's okay. But we don't really have to think about how it's not innovative because we got 2 remakes, one in Gallery 2 and one in Gallery 4. The version in 2 is unlocked from the beginning, and the one in 4 is only 10 stars, so both are equally viable. In Chef's remake, you play Princess Peach as she's making foods for Yoshi. The food gets tossed up, and Peach needs to juggle it or land it in Yoshi's mouth. Peach moves left and right and can flip the side Yoshi's on. It's already pretty different from the original, but there's an added risk mechanic here. If you juggle the food, it becomes cooked and worth more points when you give it to Yoshi, but cook it too long and it becomes burnt. This one is actually pretty complicated, surprisingly. Each food item has its required number of flips before it becomes burnt or cooked. When burnt, it makes Big Yoshi smaller. When you feed Big Yoshi enough cooked items, they lay an egg. Then with more cooked items, it hatches into a small Yoshi, and then into a Big Yoshi, giving bonus points for each. The difference between the 2 versions are different food items. GBA has better and more accurate sprites, background changes every 200 points on GBA, better audio on the GBA, and other minor tweaks like that. And the difference between A version and B version is when flipping the foods in A version, it will continue to stay in the same area. When you flip foods on Game B, the food will fly off in different directions. The better version to play is the GBA version, but I played the GBC version because of my device choice. It's a better fit, bigger screen. I don't think the 2 are different enough that it matters though. Is it worth playing though? The original is more of the same from Game & Watch. It's one of the better games, but it's not really worth playing. There isn't anything special about this one, but the remakes are different and makes you use your brain in an interesting way. Though I don't really care for it, and I don't know how to explain why I don't like it. I guess it's the side swapping mechanic that I don't like, but I can't think of what could be done to improve it. If feeding is how you score now, and you used Classic's method of feeding, then it'd be impossible to miss. Mickey Mouse and Egg. Disney must have had dollar signs in their eyes yet again because they got a crossover with GW as well. But Nintendo made an alternate version that replaces Mickey with a wolf. These are both the same game, just different characters, and they came out the same week. Gameplay is simple. You have chickens laying eggs, and you need to catch them before they hit the ground. You do this using the 4-way diagonal method that we saw in Manhole in the Gold series. For those seeing this video on its own and not in the big edit in the future, there are 4 buttons with 2 on the left and right sides. The top left button moves the basket to the top left, and the others do the same for their corresponding direction. The controls work great on the original, but it's 44 years into the future, and no controller has 4-way diagonal layout. That means that the remasters had to get creative. In the remasters on Gallery 3, they get rid of direct input, where one button corresponds with one direction. Instead, the basket is treated as a cursor, and its direction is moved between the 4 locations. Meaning if you're at the top left and you wanted to get to the bottom right, you would have to press right then down or down then left. Diagonal input on the D-pad doesn't work, so the fastest way you can get this is rolling your thumb right then down. This might not seem like a big deal, but you lose precious fractions of seconds by inputting an unnecessary direction. But they did make it so pressing A will make you jump to the opposite diagonal. This works, and it's a decent alternative, but it's easy to get confused in the moment and mess up your flow. The alternative control method is how G and W handheld emulation handles it. Up on D-pad goes to top left, down is bottom left, then top button on the right side is top right, and bottom button on the right side is bottom right. This is much closer and much easier to play with. Nintendo really chose to do things the hard way and put in an entirely different control scheme. Overall though, this game lacks challenge. It's a basic collection game and it features no depth. It's essentially a Silver Series game but released later. It's perfectly fine, they didn't need to innovate with every entry, but it definitely feels lacking and straight up boring at times, especially in the early game. Basically, the main difference between the two is just aesthetics. Mickey was the American version and Egg was the Japanese version. But it's really cute and bright and very representative of the game, and despite its age, it feels very modern because Mickey really hasn't changed that much since the 80s. For remakes, we have just the Gallery 3 version, which features Yoshi eating sweets as they roll down tracks. As the cookies roll down the track, they become progressively more cooked, so you get more points when they're baked, but this one can go pretty fast. Don't feel bad if you feel like you have to eat them as soon as they appear. In addition, you need to watch out for bob-ombs. Don't let cookies fall off the track, 3 misses, and you lose. As you eat baked cookies, you fill Yoshi's cookie meter, and when it fills, he lays an egg, giving you a bonus 10 points. Like in Chef, if you continue to keep this up, the egg will hatch, and then little Yoshi will eat some of the cookies for you, and they're worth more points that way. So what's the best way to play? The Yoshi remake, of course. It's my favorite, and it feels so wildly different from the original. I love how fast-paced it is. You can't play Mickey nowadays, probably due to licensing, so to play that version you need to use MAME or G&W handheld. But Egg can still be played in Gallery 3, and I think it's too slow to be much fun. It has the standard GW issue. Hard to judge what's falling first and how fast. It doesn't feature additional tracks, so you can't use that as a hint. Is it worth playing? The original is very skippable, I don't think you're missing out, but you should definitely try the Gallery 3 remake. And Gallery 3 is on the Switch, so, you know, it's pretty accessible. Fire. This is the same Fire as Silver Series Fire. The original handheld features a better background, but is otherwise the same game. If you want to see more on that, including remakes and remasters, check out the Silver Series video on the end card, but if you're seeing this as a big edit, you've already seen that stuff, so thanks for watching this long. Turtle Bridge. It's exactly what it sounds like. You cross a bridge made of turtles. You play John Game & Watch and you need to hand deliver a package to the other guy on the other side of the water. But the only way across is using the turtles as stepping stones. The turtles are surprisingly chill with this, but don't stand on them when the fish gets close, otherwise the turtle swims down and leaves you to drown. It's a relatively straightforward game made difficult by the package recipient leaving at random. This leaves you with bouncing back and forth on the turtles until he gets back. Once you do hand it over, you have to run back to the beginning to grab another package. If you remember Helmet from the Gold series, this is essentially the same game, but the tools are replaced with fishies and turtles, and it's flipped on its y-axis. It's pretty cool how a simple perspective change can entirely change how a game is played. Overall, this is a pretty simple game that can get pretty challenging. It's not one of my favorites, and it can be a little frustrating. It really makes me hate turtles, but I really like the appearance of this one. The color background is the most involved of what we've seen so far, and it really sells the game. But the handheld itself has dropped the metallic appearance and went with a design I would call NES controller-like. Aesthetically, it stands out quite a bit from the rest of the series, but breaks the design theme that's been established from the 16 previous devices. The box is also different by breaking away from the gold boxes. For remakes, we only have one, and it's in Gallery 3. Thankfully, it's available from the beginning. This also means that it's on the Switch, so it's easy for most of you to play. In it, you play as Toad, and you have to cross a bridge made of seagulls. Let me Google the name of the seagulls real quick, because even a basic animal in Mario has these goofy, weird names like Monty Mole, or like the fireball that was called Poto Boo in the last one. So let's see what they're called. Goonies. I love a good goon. Anyway, you play Toad crossing a bridge of gooners to deliver a package to Peach. As you cross, balloons come up to the gooners for them to peck. To add to the depth a bit is a middle section of the board that has 3 clouds with coins on either side. The coins are worth points and you can hop on the clouds, but they disappear after a moment. This one actually gets pretty complex too. You get points for delivering the item, points for getting back to Mario, and points for coins. Each time you make it back to Mario without failing, he gives you an item worth more points. The balloons also come in different colors that move at different speeds. As you get more points, the stage elements change. The stone platform turns into a platform that disappears after a countdown, then falling donut platforms that fall immediately after jumping on them. The trick is to hop on the block, then hop onto a cloud, and wait for the perfect time to cross. It's a pretty easy game to get perfect scores in. It was my first 1,000 point game. The best version to play is, of course, the Gallery 3 remake. There are bad remakes, but so far we've had nothing but good ones. This version of Turtle Bridge is one of the best GW games hands down. It's fun, fast-paced, and a mix of reaction and logic, and it can be pretty stressful. It's a good mix of what makes the franchise fun to play, but the classic version lacks all of this, so it's one of those ones that are better looking back on it. So, is it worth playing? The remake is. The original, eh. Fire Attack. Oh man, this one is a little culturally rough. You play as a cowboy, and you are being attacked by indigenous Americans. They're trying to light your tower on fire with torches by climbing up or throwing them. You need to press one of 4 directions to hit the torches away with your mallet, or to hit indigenous people over the head with your mallet. I'm as surprised as you are. I didn't look this one up before I started writing. Thankfully, GW games don't have dialogue, otherwise this probably could have been worse. The game is a simple 4-way diagonal game. It kind of works like whack-a-mole. Game A has people coming at you from bottom left, right, and top right, and Game B is all 4 directions. Once you reach 200 or 500 points without misses, you get a short temporary bonus where hits are worth 5 points. It's a really basic game, and it's just okay. Another Silver Series style entry. There is something different about it, though. In all the Game & Watch games before this except Octopus, every interaction has been automated. In Vermin, for example, you need to move the player character left and right, and when the mole hops out, the exterminator automatically swings and whacks the mole. In this, you need to not only move the player to the correct location, but time when you hit that by hitting the direction again. It's a small change, but it makes the game much more involved and better. In a sense, it makes the game harder too, but it's a good change overall. More player control is almost always a good thing. The background is also really nice looking. The packaging is, well, look at it. The handheld itself is nice though, the color choices really pop. As for remakes, we get one in Gallery 4, but it's 65 stars to unlock. I do have it. Thankfully, the classic version was changed. They removed the feathers and headdresses, making the attackers appear less culturally insensitive. Some of you might be rolling your eyes, but if a game was made about the near eradication of my people, and you play a guy who's harming those people, I probably wouldn't have any interest in buying the game. Anyway, the modern version has you playing Wario trying to protect a golden statue of himself that he's still building from attackers. At least we finally know what he does with all that treasure. The game functionally is the same, but feels much slower than the original. Bob-ombs and hens walk up the stairs and you whack the bob-ombs, but leave the hens alone. Bullet bills and power-ups are fired up top. Whack the bills, eat the heart for an extra life, and eat the apple for bonus points. It's more involved with the addition of bonuses, but never really reaches that level of being fun for me. It's like a slower version of Egg. The visuals are great though. What's the best way to play though? On one hand, emulation and retrofab are the quickest way to try it out. Getting 65 stars can take ages on Gallery 4. But I do think the remake and remaster are better and less It's kind of a toss-up. Do whatever you think is worth it. I'd skip it, but overall, I don't think it's worth playing. Race stuff aside, it's still not a great Game & Watch game. It's basic even for Game & Watch. Snoopy Tennis. Damn, I had my money on Garfield being next. This is the last entry in the Widescreen series. After this, we get to talk about the real reason you're here. The multi-screen games. Ooh, ah. In Snoopy Tennis, Snoopy and Charlie Brown are playing around with rackets and balls in the backyard. Lucy can't mind her own damn business though, so she pops in to knock your balls back and at a higher speed. As if climbing a tree when you're this short wasn't hard enough already. Like Fire Attack, moving into position isn't enough. You have to press a button to hit too. This results in a very interesting layout for the controls with up and down being on the right and hit being on the left. If you fail to hit a ball back to the server, it zips past Snoopy, breaks something, and Charlie gets bummed out giving you a miss. The gameplay is pretty slow at first, but quickly picks up and makes for a surprisingly overwhelming experience. Like many Game & Watch games, there are tracks with fewer frames, the highest count being at the top. So the bottom moves the fastest, but Lucy bends those rules by her hits being yet faster. Timing is important too, as Snoopy's racket will only hit the ball back when it's directly in front of his face. And once Snoopy is mid-swing, he can't move. It can get pretty crazy. I wasn't expecting such a high-octane game from Snoopy. Also, a little fun thing, in this one, Woodstock is your alarm. I really do like this one, and the integration of hit mechanics makes this one much better. I'd like to see a reproduction of this one. Unfortunately, since it's a licensed game, there isn't an official remake or remaster. Even though there has been multiple Mario Tennis games by the time the GBA was out, the only way to play this is through MAME, G&W handheld emulation, and Retrofab. Is it worth playing? There are enough similar games like Parachute that I don't think you're missing out. And that's it for the widescreen series. Nothing crazy here, just more of the same Game & Watch, but this was also good practice for the team. It taught them what they could and couldn't do. They knew the small screens of Silver and Gold weren't enough to make the games that they really wanted to make. Then the widescreen series taught them that maybe the real limitations was having just one screen. Since you can only have so many images on one of these screens, and you could only have one idea going on one screen, it made sense to double up on the screens. By adding an additional screen, you could have two vastly different experiences happening on two different screens. That's for next time, though. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to tip your YouTuber. I accept likes and subscribes. And I'll see you all next time with the vertical widescreen series. It's going to be busy. 12 games and an unreleased prototype. Bye!